Hello, a big hello to everybody. I'm very happy to meet you and to speak about this subject on women in leadership in Africa and beyond. And so you can always react. You have this smiley where you can say react, and then you can also, if you want to speak, you can show your hands and you can use the chat, and I will manage the chat if you have any questions. So basically, this webinar is organized by the GlobalWo.MenHub and by Rise School. Dr. Pat will speak about this, but she has set up this school, and we organized this meeting together. Short word about the GlobalWo.MenHub. It's a non-for-profit association based on Belgian law, and we strive really to reinvent the gender equality agenda, going from pure equality to cooperation and synergy. That's basically it. So today we have the great chance to have Magali Anderson with us. She will moderate and launch the meeting and the conversation. And then afterwards, Dr. Pat will speak. Magali Anderson is a member of the board of the GlobalWo.MenHub, and she is also a member of the board of Anglo-American, and she has been a long time with, excuse me, but okay, now it's okay. She has been a long time the Chief Sustainability Officer from Holcim, so she is the best to moderate. Magali, I leave you the word.
Thank you very much, Christine. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then I will ask Dr. Pat to introduce herself, even though I think most of the people here knows her very well. But you know, when Christine asked me if I would like to moderate the discussion with Dr. Pat, I actually was extremely honored and happy to do it, because you are such a person, Dr. Pat. And then when we met and we had that discussion, we just was almost like sisters speaking, right? We were just bouncing off each other. So the preparation was extremely fun. We should have recorded it, in fact, but it gives me a lot of hope of how that discussion will go as well. So if you don't mind, I will start, just introduce myself quickly. I am an engineer by trade, and my very first job was working on an offshore rig in Nigeria, in Wari, if there is any Nigerians on the online. And that's, I think, where I completely fell in love with the African continent. And I spent many years working. I spent 5 years in Wari, but I also visited many times, and I lived in Angola not long after the war, where I was in charge of the country for Schlumberger. I spent my career as an executive in the oil and gas industry for about 27 years, and then 10 years in the cement industry as Chief Sustainability Innovation Officer. I had many jobs, pretty boring, nothing to really explain, but a lot of it in the very male-dominated industry. And because of that, I wrote a blog called La Pétroleuse, which you can find under my name, where I tried to guide a little bit younger ladies who come into male-dominated industries and sometimes can be a little bit lost. And I met Christine 5 years ago, I think, and I've been in contact with your hub for all this time. That's why I'm really happy today to be, as I was saying, moderating that. So Dr. Pat, why don't you start by introducing yourself and the Rise School, because maybe there's some people here who don't know you yet.
Thank you very much, Magali, for that introduction, and I'm excited about the possibilities of today's conversation. Christine, I remember when you started this hub, and you have been very consistent growing it. So I'm so happy that we had said one day we'll do this, and today is the day. So my name is Dr. Patricia Murugami. I'm also called Dr. Pat by many people. I see quite a number of our alumni here from across Africa who've done many of our programs in Rise School. By way of introduction, I am an African woman who's deeply interested in reshaping leadership across Africa and beyond. I believe that when people discover who they were created to be and actually pursue that path, then they move others to a higher ground, which is really what leadership is. But I didn't always start like this. I started my career as an auditor at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and KPMG, and then moved into industry and fascinatedly worked with Lafarge Cement. So it's interesting, Magali, we have something in common right there. I was a regional resource, and that's when I started to see very clearly, having worked in male-dominated spaces, what women had the potential to become and where they were being held back. I then took a gamble and I said, it's time to change my career. It was really deeply entrenched in me that I felt I needed to do more. And yes, it was great to do the numbers and strategy, but it was even more important to actually choose to do something about the people behind the numbers. And that's how I took a gamble and moved into leadership education at one of the leading business schools here in Kenya. And then from there, 10 years down the road, after doing my doctorate in business administration in leadership and governance, I said, it's time to be an entrepreneur. But funny, I was always an entrepreneur deep down in my DNA. So it was like coming back home. And Breakthrough Leadership Transformation is then the firm that I run. I see some of my colleagues here. And our mission is truly to help people rise up, elevate themselves and others, rise as they lift many others, and grow first internally, privately, personally, professionally, and publicly. 2020, when the pandemic happened, one of the things I'd always been told by my dad is, don't waste a good crisis. Now, that was a hard crisis. But out of that, we then started thinking about how do we reshape the way we deliver leadership programs, coaching, because many people, we all couldn't meet. And actually, this was the platform we started off on, a virtual platform. So I wrote my first book, An Accidental Author, out of peer pressure from some young people who said, why don't you take this time to write a book? And I wrote Rise, and that gave birth to Rise School, Africa's first digital leadership platform. I'll tell you more as we continue this conversation. I am delighted to be here. I see many people that I don't know, so I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
So, Dr. Pat, you just gave us a few words how you came to write the book, and I love the title of the Rise School. I think it's a fantastic, it's so self-telling. But can you explain to us a little bit more how you came up with that, and because it's not that easy to go from a place where you get your salary every month, either you do a good job or not. Well, if you do a really too bad job, you may end up getting fired, but you don't, there's no much challenge. You know, at the end of the month, your salary is going to fall. To decide to embark into being an entrepreneur just over an idea, just because you thought the time was right. Tell us, how difficult was that? And what did it require from you to actually do it? And why you did it, in fact?
Magali, that's such a powerful question. I think my experience has been when you do a very deeply transformational program, it changes you on all fronts. And so when I finished my doctorate, which I was doing as a sandwich program, I was actually doing it in Paris, though my French is nothing like yours. And because it was a global program, then I had an opportunity to meet global leaders. And when I resumed and I started studying what I had studied and put into practice, I realized it was time to do. For a long time, I had been struggling to find my purpose. And it took me possibly over a decade to figure out what this purpose looks like. And so when I got back to my employment, I started seeing opportunities to do more, to be more, to help people more. Because they say that purpose is where what you have experienced as a painful place, and when you connect it to your passions, I write in Rise that that is where your purpose is. So I could see a lot of people struggling with figuring out themselves. And I also recognized that it was time. I actually remember telling my boss 1 year before I resigned that I need to do something more. And he's like, can we do it here? I said, let's try, let's do it here. And then as time wore on, I thought maybe the season was over. And I coach people around knowing the signs of the season. When the season has come to a close, finish well, finish so well that they actually now can invite me to go back and give sessions on with different clients. But it was hard. Now, because I had actually taken a gamble when I was working at the cement company to move there, I even remember taking a pay cut because I needed time for my family, which is a critical thing when you think about women in leadership. I was working very long hours. I had a young daughter. We were newly married. I kind of felt this whole integration piece wasn't working out. So I negotiated time for money. And that's when I realized you can negotiate whatever it is you want. But what then happened is when I got in, worked so hard that soon the money caught up. But it was hard. So I found the courage to do it a second time. It wasn't as difficult as the first time. Now, I remember I was one step away from Dean. So the perks were all there. But I think for a while, I've always felt it's so important to listen to your divine assignment. So I would pray a lot. I was getting mentored, I was getting coached around the next thing, and I was trying to figure it out. And I knew now it's time. So were allowed to do consulting. And I remember we had one client as breakthrough. And I kept asking in my prayer and reflections, show me a sign, like the proverbial writing on the wall. And the sign was when this client actually said, Dr. Pat, we want to do more with you, but do you have the capacity to do so? Because you're in a full-time job. And I was like, there is a sign. So I left a high-paying, very senior role with the faith of one client. I think entrepreneurs either have a lot of faith or can be foolish, isn't it? But when you have a good idea, you then move forward and say it's time. That one client opened Africa up for us. And so it paid off. But I must say, it's been a journey of and tears and a lot of grief. And from a family perspective, we had to have the conversation with my husband, Murugami, that, I want to do this. We are building a family. We have to make some adjustments, so that I can be able to get into this space. Looking back, it's just funny story. More recently, a couple of years later, my husband, who'd been working for over 20 years, one employer told me one evening, Pat, I see how courageous you are. And I think it's time for me to also get into the entrepreneurship space. So courage is a muscle. I think we need to couple it with a lot of faith and hope. But the more you exercise courage in small things, the more courageous you become. So it was tough, but it has been worth it, Magali.
I think it's an amazing story. I want to bounce back on a couple of things here. I love the fact you said when you are leaving, live in good faith. I think it's extremely important. No matter how upset you can be when you leave a job, you never know if you might want to ever go back or you might meet these people again. So it's not the time to settle things. It's the time to live with a big smile. So I think this is a great lesson, Dr. Pat. I think the timing you took, having a young baby and it was very, very extremely courageous, but it also shows that, children, some women think that children can be a showstopper in doing what you dream to do. And you just proved that no, it's not. It's yes, it certainly requires further organization, but it definitely was not a showstopper for you. You talked about either you are very brave or foolish, but I think having one client, I really like the lesson that maybe other people who would like to want to do things, you jumped in the wild, but at least
Magali lost the microphone.
I'm muted. I'm not touching anything. And some reason
okay, that's okay. Okay.
But I'm
You also can't hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now again?
Yes, we can hear you, but the video is a little bit pixelated.
Something weird happened that muted me. So anyway, I was just saying that you are not that foolish because at least you had one client to hang to. And yes. I think it's important. I'm just trying to take lesson learned for the other people learning of what you are saying. But I think the best part you said is, and I always say that to young ladies when they ask me for advice, I said, make sure you pick your husband right.
What do you mean?
Because it's so important in a case like yours. If your husband had been against it, would have been, I guess, quite complicated, right? So it's great you had a very supportive husband.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's some of that a lot of women may face.
It is. I think there are. At least I hear that a lot. So I always tells ladies, young ladies that I meet, when you meet someone that you think might be the love of your life, make sure if you have a career mind that person is supporting your career, because when the first passion is gone, it could be a bit problematic if you are not in agreement on that. Fantastic, Dr. Pat. I love what you just explained. Can you let us know now, we've talked about what happened until now. How did you come to decide to create the Rice School? But I would like to hear more about what the Rice School and how is your life today? What is happening? What you have accomplished? Talk to us about your book, your first book, because it's been many since. But tell us more. We want to know more about today. What you are doing today? What the Rice School is doing today?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm just thinking about that last thing you said before I dive into Rice School. I think a lot of women are also asking me about how do you integrate, and I think it'll come up later. But for the young ones who are dating, and perhaps there'll be some who are here, I think the advice I would give, if one is thinking of marriage, is really be a good friend. Make friends, good friends with that guy, so that then you have the conversations, as you said, Magali, even when the romance is not there, you have conversations that can actually outlive the storms of time. So I just wanted to plug that in right there. So Rise School. So Rise School came as a result of the book Rise. And when I wrote Rise, I remember I had never thought I would be an author. I always thought the authors were Chimamanda, and it was Brené Brown, all these people. And I was like, they're those people. So for me, a big lesson was don't shortchange yourself on your dream. Because when you look at those who have done it, they look like they're so far ahead. They're such big names, but your dream is valid. And I remember what happened is when I was writing the book, two things came up. I did a writing course, 21 days on Facebook. And at some point, we were asked to write a table of contents. And this gentleman, who actually is now my publisher of now 4 books, noticed that I had gone quiet. And he wrote me an email and said, Dr. Pat, what's going on? I thought you really were keen on this program. And I told him, I did a Google search on books on leadership, and I discovered there are so many millions. And I asked myself, what can I add to this? And then I told him, I'm also afraid of looking foolish, right? So he wrote back and said, there are some people who will only read and listen to your voice and your lived experience. So write for those. And then because he knows I believe in God, he said, if your foolishness serves God and others, may it be foolish. And that was really liberating for me, because I realized some of these barriers, internal barriers that we put in front of ourselves and around us, cage us from truly becoming who we were created to become. So I finished the book and we launched it December 6th, 2020, right in the middle of COVID. I remember my parents were in the room. And I remember thinking, wow, I don't know what this is going to bring. People read the book the next year and told me, Dr. Pat, can you teach us how to rise? Now, the Rise book is based on my doctoral research, where I studied how do people grow and lead and become transformational leaders. And you go by raising your heart first, and then raising your head, and then raising your hand as you lift others, and then raising your entire being for a higher purpose. So there's even a formula, because I like math. Yeah, that growth, G is equals to R multiplied by 4 H's. Yeah, because it's raise your heart, head, hand, higher purpose, 4 H's. Now I see a lot of Rise Masterclass leaders in this program, so I guess you're doing a revision here. But more than that,
I was going to say, are we going to have a test at the end for this?
I don't know. I don't know. They should be the one talking about the programs. But what happened is that we realized, a lot of people told me, unless we come into the country, we can never access you. You can never access breakthrough. You can never access your faculty. So how about you transcend time and space? And I took a gamble. Now, I think my life is a series of gambles, risks, and prayers. And we had this young team, this tech team, and they told me, you know what, Dr. Pat, why don't we build this virtually? And that's how we started. So we came up with the branding. We got a strategy consultant, a branding team, and we just started. And I told them, by the time we run the Your Next Best Self conference, which is a conference we run every year. So what I do, I start with a deadline. I begin with the end in mind. So I told them that, you know what, we have to launch this by the end of the year. And this is the date. So whatever we do in between, doesn't matter, but we have to launch. And true to our word, 2021 in the conference, we launched Rise School with a Rise Masterclass as the very first program. No, I'm excited when I even look at some of the leaders here. I see Karine, I see Nelly, I see Tabitha, I see many people who've actually done the Rise Masterclass. And for me, it's been an opportunity to get to know credible leaders who I probably would never have met face to face unless we had the Rise Masterclass. And so right now, over 200 leaders have gone through it, and counting, from as far as Dubai, Germany, the US, Burundi, Uganda, Tanzania, South Africa, Kenyans, both men and women. And that's the other thing. We thought that our Rise School platform is supposed to elevate both male and female leaders to the next level. Out of the Rise School, then we got feedback about Gen Zs, and the generational wisdom is a big issue, is a big area for us. And so we thought, you know what, why don't we also mentor and coach young leaders to come up within high school through the early risers. It's not about waking up early, it's about rising early in life. And interestingly, we just had the third graduation last Friday. And I remember one young man saying how he just turned 28 or so, and his boss was telling him, something has changed in you over the last 6 weeks. What has changed? And he was like, wow, it's the Early Risers program. In that class, I remember there's a man who came all the way from Nakuru. Nakuru is like a 2.5-hour journey. And he came for the graduation in person because the program is all virtual, but we meet with the graduation. And he woke up and left his home at 2 a.m. so as to make sure there's no traffic issue and come all the way and be the first in the room in Nairobi, even before other people who live in Nairobi, to graduate. And I said, success leaves. You will find people who invest in their learning, like many of our alumni here, and others who are here because they want to grow. When you invest in learning, your opportunity meets the prepared. It doesn't meet someone who's not ready. And we only elevate to the level of your preparation. And so that has been our experience with Rise School. It's opened up very many doors and countries. So now we've had experience reshaping leadership across 27 countries globally, with many of them being in Africa. So very connected to our mission.
I think it's amazing what you're explaining, because to have someone coming telling you that people, and particularly the boss, I mean, who is more important professionally is that your boss, right? I mean, that's the person that has so much power over you. And to have your own boss saying, I see you have changed. It must be extremely rewarding for you, Dr. Pat, to have this type of people coming back. And it shows how useful your program is. And the fact that we now have, I'm looking, 58 people who are on the call. I mean, it's all credit to how important the program is, and must be extremely feel good factor. I like, there's many things you said that I like. Again, you know, the 4 H's. Well, I'm not sure I've remembered them, so I wouldn't be good if you were doing a test to me, but how you're trying to articulate around really few concepts makes it so much easier after to remember. And really, I just love the concept of helping people to grow and rise, because that's what it's all about. It's all about getting your own self-confidence and finding your own journey. It's not teaching someone to do something. It's teaching someone to teach themselves. And I love that. But I also love the fact that how you were questioning yourself. There's so many leadership books, but you know, I fully agree with the fact that there's a big difference between people who are trying to teach you theoretical things and people who are teaching their own journey and how it helped them and what they live themselves. And I'm sure people really see that, and that's why your course is so popular. So
thank you for that. Actually, you know, as you were speaking, I was thinking about some of our alumni here and how they have found themselves, they have found their voices. I think what's more exciting is what happens when people come to Rise School on a private level, a level that we may never see, that they shift privately, or those private goals that they make for themselves, that they choose to follow through. I found people who never liked reading, now reading, they know themselves. I found people who didn't like speaking in public, now speaking publicly. I've seen people put up their hands in tech spaces and saying, I'm going to now do something in that tech space, even if it's male dominated. I've seen authors, I've seen coaches. I think that is the real reward for us. It's not even the fee that it's seeing someone, even their posture changing. You know, the reason I wore this Maasai neck piece is because the Maasais, who are a tribe in Kenya, tend to dance in such a way that they shift. And so their posture is always a posture of growth, a posture of, you know, looking forward and finding ways to actually move forward. And so the other thing is that these beads are many little beads together. And so for us, one of the lessons from Rise School is the power of little things. It's little things that were beaded together to come up with even this strand. And it's one by one. So part of the lessons that we hope that our risers, we call them our risers, who are not only in the Rise Masterclass, early risers, I see RICA members. RICA is a Risers Inner Circle Africa, a network of women. And then I see the Africa Risers Network. We read 10 books in a year. It's the little things that count, and it's the ones that make you move forward. I think in a world that glorifies big, shiny things, we're doing the very opposite, that focus on the small, hidden things, do them with love, do them with a spirit of service and excellence, and don't worry about the results. The results will certainly come.
Now, you are absolutely right. So tell me, Dr. Pat, how do you see the future of, you talked about including men, you talk about Gen Z. Are you going to start Alley Risers movement and taking over the world, which would be fantastic to have the world taken over by leaders like you, way better than some of the leaders we have today?
Yes, I think we have a leadership crisis. We have a leadership crisis, but I actually think it's a character crisis. And so when you think about alumni who've been through our programs over the last 8 or so years, I can already see they're getting into positions of leadership and influence. And I'm hoping that they will continue to live true to that mission of breathing life into organizations, into countries, into policies, so that when leaders rise, they are not breathing, and they're not, you can build people or you can break them. So they're not breaking people because they don't know how to. But I also think when you think about our future of Rise School, we see Rise School becoming a global move. We know that Africa is a new frontier, and it's wonderful that we're having this as a global conversation, because we found so many multinationals wanting to set up in Africa, in the different countries, in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Rwanda, and we're beginning to see a real refocus on Africa, and that's really edifying, because Africa was always known as the dark continent. So our goal as Rise School is to light up, and by lighting up Africa, we will then light up the world, one person at a time. So we want to embrace the lessons we've learned. For us, we are courageous about trying things out, realizing when we are failed, learning fast and failing fast and saying, let's keep going. I think that's one important piece that holds people back, the fear of failing. I find failure is just a lesson learned in a different, a little bit more painful way. But there are things you can only learn in a failed space as opposed to a successful space. So our intention is to reach the ends of the earth. That's our goal. And we'll not do it alone. We are going to build in capacity. Our alumni are going to be part of that movement. And as a result, we know that the ripple effect will happen just by one person who embodies the ideas of human virtue, leadership by character power, not hierarchical power, which is a very different thing. But also because when you talked about early risers, we are operating at a time where I was reading a piece. There's a book I'm reading called 2030, and it was just talking about how the world is going to shift. And a previous book I had read before that was saying, do you know what is mostly bought in Japan? I know many of us will think it's skincare, it's cars, but actually it's adult diapers. Now, when you actually look, Japan has a wintering population, and Africa, on this other hand, has a youth bulge where the diapers are not even enough. And I don't think we have a population crisis. I think we have a scarcity mindset around thinking that the world cannot accommodate human beings, can't get good leaders. In fact, that's really the thinking behind my fourth book, Wealthy, around just looking at the capitals you have internally. And so when we think about Rise School, we also want to move people out of their imprisoned spaces. I see Teresa here, and Teresa is a chief executive of a board that I served on called Clean Start. And their role is to actually make sure women and children who are incarcerated are integrated into life. And when I think about Rise School, many of us are in invisible prisons. We are out there seemingly free, but in invisible prisons of fear, of shame, of comparison, of perfectionism, of procrastination. And unfortunately, those prisons are the ones that are going to hold us back unless we find out a way of breaking free from them, and hence the name Break, right? So when we think about Rise School, our intention is to help people break through from those invisible prisons that block them from actually rising and truly serving others and becoming their next best self.
Now, I think it's extremely important what you are saying, because think about it. Think if when you decided to make that big jump of entrepreneurship, if you had been afraid of failing, you would have never done it. And look at what happened. And you're right, failing means that people would be very hesitant to get out of their comfort zone. And you have to get out of your comfort zone if you want to achieve great things. Not just great things, but things that will excite you and that you will feel good about. It doesn't have to be actually great, but it has to be, you feel so rewarded once you have gone out of your normal comfort zone and succeed. And even if you fail, but at least you feel good because you tried it, you tried something new, you tried something challenging for yourself. And if you fail, no big deal, try something else. But if you succeed, wow, how good it feels. So I think that lesson, if you manage to bring all the people who go, all your LA risers to a situation where they willingly go out of their comfort zone and without, and failing is not anymore something they're afraid of, that just that alone would be, is just a fantastic success story already, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I actually see quite a number of the early risers who just graduated on Friday on this call, just proving that learning never ends. Even when you graduate, come right back. I see many people who graduated over the last week to our programs, the Presence Code, Rise Masterclass, and Early Risers. And I think that idea of comfort that Magali, you said so well, growth and comfort cannot coexist. So how do you get out of that comfort space? Even now, there are people who probably wanted to join this call, but decided to watch Netflix, I've chosen to watch some series. And by the way, I have nothing against series. What if they said, let me join this call and learn something? Let me share my thoughts. And I want to welcome all of you to share any thoughts you're seeing from our conversation on the chat, ask any questions on the chat, because that comfort is the one that gets in the way of rising. So you're really right, Magali.
Well, I can my own witness, because I can be the witness of that. I started from a little village and there was no destiny of me having the career I ended up having. But in every single job I took, every single one, I think from almost the first one, I can say, what did I do differently from the people before? What did I dare to do and confront my manager to change things? Because I always thought, how can I improve that position? How can I improve that job instead of just carrying on what my predecessor have done? And it's if you are career driven, as I was, not everybody is, but I was career driven. I'm still career driven, I guess. People will promote. Well, if you have to promote someone, you're going to promote someone that you think will make the company advance. And you will only promote someone who makes the company advance if they come up with things that are not just carrying on the day-to-day. If they show you they can, like we say again, go out of their comfort zone. So you kind of have no choice if you want to grow up in your career. I'm talking about big corporation. Of course, entrepreneur it's a completely all different world. But I think for me, it's absolutely key. If I had to give one advice to people, if anyone was actually asking me one advice one day, that would be the advice I would give. Always get out of your comfort zone as much as you can, and you will have so much more fun in life.
It's true. It's the fun and growth. And it's interesting you say that comfort zone. I think sometimes people fear the unknown. I think one of the things that we are focusing on is getting leaders to get comfortable with ambiguity, get comfortable with not knowing, but choose to have a learning spirit. So that is what's going to make the difference in the future when they say that AI is going to wipe out, many millions of jobs, but it's also going to create another set of millions. I think the net effect is job creation. But I think that the leaders who will truly excel are the ones who have humility, the humility to say, I don't know, but let's put our heads together and do this thing. The ones who are not afraid to learn things that they never thought they needed to do, and the ones who will collaborate and embrace diverse thinking. So one of the tips I remember I was sharing with one of our coaching clients is, if you're in a meeting, one way to strengthen your diversity of thought is to actually, one, allow the others to speak, but more importantly, ask the question, what am I missing in this idea? Who can show light? Who can shed light? Who can be the naysayer in the room? In fact, in some teams, they actually select someone to contradict the whole idea, to shoot holes into the idea, so that you come up with an even better idea. Because sometimes when we all think the idea is great, there are some blind spots that we're not seeing. And that's what introduces the benefit of diversity of thought. And so I remember she went back and tried it, and her team were like amazed. They're like, what program? Where did you come from? Where did you come up with that thought? And what has happened is that people are embracing working better together because they're heard, they're seen, they're also paying attention to how to make these ideas work. So different things around embracing diversity of thought and diversity of experience, which is what will create better solutions. But as I finish this particular point, I'm reminded of something that we always talk about with my husband. We're always talking about find a way to solve a problem. In fact, look for the new problems. If you're in banking, what are the new problems that you need to be solved? If you're in education, what are the new problems? If you're in security, if you're in insurance, what are some new problems? You know, the other day I was talking to one of our alumni, and she told us she's in the space of creating the first luxury perfume brand in Kenya. And she did all her research, and it's been created based on experience in Dubai. And she told us that in Dubai, they ensure there's someone's career called the nose, because their work is to smell the scents, right? And the insurance companies there insure the nose. And I was thinking about the Kenyan and African insurance companies and saying, it's time we went even beyond just ensuring the normal things, insure people's voices, insure their nose, because that really is the asset they're using to solve a problem, right? So this innovation is going to come from multiple places. Christine, I see your hand up.
Yes, because I have here some comments. So I have from Fidas Kamanga that about growth and comfort. She said this is true. Growth and being comfortable in a certain space cannot work. You have to dare oneself and dream. Then Carol Miller said, curious to know if alumni have a way to stay connected to each other and previous grades after they graduate. Reflecting on Dr. Murugami's point about alumni as part of a movement and being part of something bigger. Solidarity and support networks.
Love the comments. Allow me to respond to them. So first of all, Fides Kamanga, it's great to see you. I'm so happy that you're able to join this call. I know we were chatting earlier all the way from Malawi. And I remember when I met her, one of the things that stood out for me is that she attended a program we're doing for the corporate, and it was all virtual until the very last days. But I remember Fides because she put on her video, like you're seeing Raul, Karine, Nelly, Magali, Christine, and I. And maybe if I go to the other screens, maybe there are more videos on, but maybe not. And one of the things I would tell them is, in a world that is so noisy and so distracted, putting on your video is an act of leadership present, because I'm bound to remember the faces I saw more than the voices I heard. And then when you make a comment, you then become even more engaged. And so you're right. And I remember seeing how she embraced the learning. By the time she was graduating, I could see the growth. So you're very right, Fides, that is exactly what it is. Carol Miller then asked about how do they stay connected. So we have something called the Africa Risers Network, and I'll ask my team to post on the group, on the chat, the link to joining Africa Risers Network. It's a global network where all our alumni, together with also their friends, can join so that we have monthly sessions where we read a book, we analyze it, and then we have a fireside chat, something like this. And we do it every month for 90 minutes, and it's fascinating. At the end of the year, we'll have read 10 books, and we'll have had people from the alumni and the network speaking about their leadership journey and what it is that they are yet to learn or they've learned, and sharing that wisdom. And the reason we chose to come up with the Africa Risers Network is I had so many requests in my socials around, Dr. Pat, please mentor me, please mentor me. I'm one person. So I thought, what if we mentored each other, a 360 degrees kind of mentorship, and we rise together. So that's really the essence of the Africa Risers Network. More specifically, we have, that one is a virtual one, which means anyone, anywhere can join. And then we have RICA, which is in Kenya, RICA means an age group, like a set and a group of people who are in the same season, in a sense. and I see quite a number of our RICA members. That's an in-person network. We meet 4 times in a year. These are more seasoned leaders who actually wanted to ensure they keep the connection beyond the graduation. So you're all very welcome, Carol. You're welcome to join the Africa Risers Network. And there's a very big power of solidarity and support networks. I think on the call, I can already see some of our members. I see Dr. Angela Migoa, for example, who just made professor. And congratulations, Dr. Angela. I see Karine, who just completed our 4th program. I see Gloria all the way from Ghana. Karine is from Burundi. Gloria from Ghana. I see Beatrice from Uganda. And the reason I mention this names, you see, I can see them because they participate in the network so vibrantly that I know that they are really growing. And why is it important that when you stay in a place where you people who are better than you, sharper than you, challenging you, the only way is to rise. But if you're the smartest person in your neighborhood, you need to change homes, right? You need to move out or introduce more intelligent people, right? Because many times it's easy to have that kingdom kind of outlook, especially when you're very good at what it is that you do. So there's a big power of support networks and solidarity. I see Christine has another question from a new message.
Yes, another comment from Emma Anne Otieno. I totally agree with Dr. Murugami comments that it will be the humble leaders who will stay at the top in this bunny AI era.
Dr. Emma, it's wonderful to see you. I was even just checking to see where is Dr. Emma. Dr. Emma is one of our most consistent leaders. And I remember she gave us a chance by joining the very first program, amongst with a few others in 2019. And every year she comes back. She's a PhD, but she has never stopped learning. And so this comment about humility is actually something, Dr. Emma, you embody together with Nini. Let me emphasize her comment there, and thank you for this comment, by saying in a bunny world, what's a bunny world? The world is brittle. People are very suspicious of each other. You call an Uber, if it's not moving, you call and say, where are you? Where are you? You don't look like you're moving, you cancel. People have very short patience levels, right? So we are brittle. Then anxious. We're finding that generations have become more anxious. Research is showing us that we're now living in a loneliness epidemic, yet we are the most connected. How many gadgets do you have in front of you? At least a minimum of 2, including the one you're on. And so we have a lot of connections, but we are not connecting. There's a very big difference. And so we are finding a lot of anxiety. And then on top of that, non-linear challenges require us to think not in a straight line, but in a non-linear way. And the problems you're having are incomprehensible. This means that you cannot be a know-it-all leader, but to have the humility to say, I don't know. Magali, you had that experience.
I really wanted to comment there before we move to another comment, Christine.
Yes, of course.
I really love what you said about that. And I've been talking a lot to young people, and young people, what they say, which is very interesting, they say, we want the leaders to show vulnerability. And I love that word. Because what it actually means, it means that as a leader, you are saying, I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. I need you to help me. And the young people love that. They want to feel that they can help you, and they can. And I love the tips you shared, Dr. Pat. I think the tips of saying, what am I missing, or come up with, tell me that I'm wrong. I think it's fantastic because so many companies go completely the wrong way just because leaders won't listen to anyone. They are alpha of people, and they think they only get it right. So I think I love your tip, and we truly believe in vulnerability. If we want to attract the young talents, we need it, but not just that. If we want to have the best idea coming out and not just the idea of the leader, it's so necessary. So I just wanted to bounce back on what you said, and I let Christine read the next comment now.
Great point, Magali.
Yes, then the comment from Fidas, great to see you, Dr. Patricia. I'm a proud graduate here. You helped me to move out of my comfort zone. I'm looking forward to how far Rise School will go. Rise School to the world. Then Angela Migowa, thank you, Dr. Patricia, for all the mentorship you offer us. Grateful to the organizer for this great session. Beatrice Moulindua, I like the comments to look out for what's missing in an ID or how to improve it. I've just joined a board of a bank, and this nugget is key for me. Congo a Angelina, comfort zone is like an addiction that covers the power that exists within us. Thanks to Rise School, I defeated my procrastination habits. Thanks to you, Patricia. Dr. Perhaps. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I know that Magali wants to ask me a few more questions, but let me say two things about this. Thank you so much for the comments right through. And this idea, Beatrice, congratulations on joining the board of a bank. Well done. That's news for us. So continue rising as a riser. And one of the things that I just want to share with you by serving on that bank board, I think banks will really need to rethink the future of banking, and so I think that idea around what are the new problems, what are the challenges, what's missing in an idea. And I think one of the banks that we advise, some of the big boards we advise, we tell them to ensure that they introduce a young person who's usually a quarter of the age of the other board to come on rotation to share an idea of something they haven't thought about. It takes a lot of vulnerability, Magali, you're right. It takes a lot of humility. And so thank you for sharing that with us. And Tongo Angelina, well done. I think in Rise, I write procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God owes you another chance to do tomorrow what you should have done today. You hear that? Arrogant. Eh? And then every time I procrastinate, I'm trying to finish writing another book. And I keep saying, I'm going to finish it. And I say, can you take your own advice, Dr. Pat, and do today what you had planned to do today? So I know Magali wants to ask one final two questions. I see.
Yeah.
Money coach. And thank you very much for also the lessons that you share. Right? Magali?
Yeah, well, one first quick question is, but I will ask it instead of the other. You talked about the Africa Riser Network. When are we going to talk about the Worldwide Risers Network? So that's my first question. But I will let you answer that after. But something we discussed when we were preparing that call, and I think it would be interesting to mention it here, is you did say that, and I already talked about it briefly, how you started that new adventure with a little baby. Can we talk 2 minutes about that? Can we talk 2 minutes about how women put themselves stops because they, not only them, but the entire society, sometimes their family, sometimes their husband, so many people around them kind of get together to make them feel guilty, make them feel that they're a bad mom if they don't stop and stay at home. And for me, it's a bit of the elephant in the room here because we don't talk about it enough. Yes. And even when you are, I mean, I think if I had stayed at home with my two daughters, I would have gone mad. They would have run me crazy. So I needed work just for sanity purpose. But even me, I had moments where I was like, is that the right thing? Should I? So I would like, if you could say something about that, and maybe also say about the Worldwide Risers Network.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to end with that one on the Global Risers Network. Loading soon. So that's, our sites are there, but we wanted to start where we are. I think one of the things I learned is start where you are. Plant that small seed, have a ripple effect, and in no time, it'll grow to something way beyond what you thought. So the Global Risers Network is loading soon, so thank you for bringing that up. Let me talk about the elephant in the room, mommy guilt, female guilt, because I think the guilt is not just for mothers. I think it's a female guilt that we see, and I find, having come from a family of only boys, I only have brothers, they don't struggle with such things. My husband doesn't struggle with that kind of guilt. He's like, amazing. It's time for me to go and do a run. It's time to go and run. And I'm thinking, do I run or do I stay or do I? And then finally I don't go, you see? So two things, or maybe a couple of things there around. I think the first and foremost is to remember that the grass will always seem greener on the other side. I know stay-at-home moms and housewives who wish they had a corporate experience. I know corporate women like myself, like many of us here, who wish they were stay-at-home moms. So a couple of things I learned over time. I chose to have seasoned friends and who had walked the path ahead of me. And I remember one particular good friend of mine, Professor Anne, and she would travel, and she also had a family, and she was in a career space. And she told me, when God gives you talents, you need to use them, but need to know the season. So there are seasons when you can take a step back, and there are seasons you can accelerate. And I think it's so important to know the season and the wisdom required for the season. That's the first thing. The second thing is it takes a village to bring up a child, but as a parent, you are going to be the most critical voice for that child. And so what do you need to do in the season where you need to build those values, those virtues? Even if they may choose to make other decisions in the future, you will have had the responsibility of being able to start from the ground, the foundation stage, to move them forward. When I was moving from that career to one that gave me time, I noticed that the risk was there of missing out on a window. And the guilt continues. You work late, you're feeling guilty. When you're at home and you have a deadline, you're feeling guilty. So the guilt thing is like a cloud all over us. But it's true. And now I've learned over time to actually ask myself some hard questions. What am I really guilty about? Am I comparing myself with someone? Or is it someone else who's made me feel guilty? I have friends who are single. They're constantly being asked, when are you getting married? Since you're not getting married, you can work late. That's unfair. That's a form of bias. Same principle around, that friend of mine who's on her baby number 5 being asked, don't you know something better? I'm like, that's unfair. Also, that's a bias because, having children is a gift. So we're going to be asked many questions. So one of the things I've found is raise your boundaries. You don't have to answer to every question. Don't have to accept every invitation to argue with someone. You can choose not to. And then build systems. Build systems. So I have found that my children will have other mothers, aunties, my friends. I see Emily here, who's a good friend of my eldest daughter. I see another mother there who we carpool. When I'm traveling, she'll pick my younger one. And so I think we've got to move away from the superwoman mentality and the Messiah complex of trying to save everyone and feeling that unless I do everything, I am not worthy of being called a good person, a good mother, a good dad. As a matter of fact, that energy transfers to our children of guilt, of feeling as if you're not enough, feeling unworthy. So it's very important to also build in time to reflect, to rest, to renew, pray, to play a hobby. Let's learn from these men also. I think there's some great ideas we can see from the men folk in our space, as well as building systems. And then lastly, when you think about home and work, when you go to work, be the best professional you can. And when you're at home, even if it's for 2 hours, be the best stay-at-home mom. And I'll use stay-at-home mom, but some of us are living with our siblings. We're living alone. We're taking care of aging parents. Just replace that with whatever your circumstances are, so that you're fully present in whichever space and you're not mixing the wires, that when you're at work, your mind is at home, and when you're at home, your mind is at work. And that way, you never succeed in any way. And that's why sometimes we are left in a space where we feel doomed if we don't, damned if we do. And so I think that those are some things I would say. Traveling is a big one because some of our roles are regional roles. You've got to travel. One friend of mine told me, when you really must travel, make sure you take time to rest when you're out there. And so for me, when I travel, I look at it as, it's true, I'm working hard, but it's a mini holiday, a time to just decompress. I'm in that hotel room. I'm not the one cooking. I'm not checking homework. Well, sometimes I'm still checking homework through Zoom. But to a large extent, I have time to actually decompress, journal, and renew myself and my spirit. So I think let's really deal with this female guilt and remember that when you don't use your gifts in the season you're meant to use them, those gifts actually rot. And you don't want to have been blessed with gifts that you can't use in the season you're meant to use them.
Well, I think before Christine said it, I think we have reached the end of the time, which is sad because there's a lot of comments, but I think it was quite a fantastic conclusion you just gave us there, Dr. Pat, just now. So, and I think there was quite a lot of more comments of people saying they were very inspired by what you said. So, but I guess, Christine, that's the end of the time. I don't think we can continue.
Well, can I answer 1 or 2 questions? Can we extend just 4 minutes to 9:05 because I can see there. Wendy Kamau is asking, yes, Magali, you want to say something?
Yeah, there was a question about Yeah, Wendy Kamau, let me ask it to you because
Yes.
that's been your own question. Thank you for this very inspiring, Dr. Patricia. Were there time you felt like going back to employment, and how did you handle it? I think it's a very interesting question, and maybe people can bear with us a few more minutes.
Let me tell you, when you're employed, end month never seems to come fast enough. Yeah, end month is when you get your salary. When you're employed, it seems as if you will never get to that point. But when you're the employer, I actually believe end month comes faster than when I was employed. Meaning that the role and the responsibility for payroll and for the team and the families is a daunting task. But I think one of the things I have learned over time is I don't look back. I don't look back to regrets. I tell myself, you know what, in this season, I love the flexibility, the ability to solve problems for African and global businesses. And so going back to employment would actually be somewhat contradictory to my purpose path. And so, no, I've never felt like going back to employment. However, in some seasons where the sales and the economic environment has been very tough, I've really had to ask myself, how are we going to get through this particular season? And sometimes I look at my friends who are employed, and some of them, and even our clients, there are some clients who what they earn is equivalent to my entire payroll, you know? And I'm like, and they're still saying they need more. And I'm thinking, wow, you know? So for me, I've also learned to have a grateful mindset. I remember during the pandemic, we had a smaller team, but I chose to take a pay cut also on my salary so that we wouldn't have to let anyone go. Yeah. And that was important because in that season, many people's jobs just disappeared overnight. And so for me, I take the Bible verse that don't look back, turn into salt. And I also take the statement that was said in one of our podcasts, don't look back, you're not going that way. So look forward, don't look back like, I wish I had this. No, you don't have it. So accept. And I think acceptance is such a critical thing. Accept the season you're in, accept the good, the bad, and the ugly. Accept. And then take that and use it in a way that will help you become a better version of yourself. And in so doing, if you need to change your mind, I mean, wise people change their minds. You can change your mind. But I just want to say, never make decisions when you're emotionally triggered or you're very anxious, because you'll make the wrong decision. And some of those decisions have a very long-term effect. So I really want to end by saying, Christine, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you for hosting us, for making this.
Oh, it was nice.
And I want to thank Magali. I think we could have done this for 2 more hours without, feeling tired or anything. Thank you so much for having me and for this fireside conversation. I hope that it has inspired everyone in one way. If you take one thing, just one thing that you can take from our collective conversation, including the chat, I think that it has been worthwhile to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Patricia, Dr. The last thing I would like to say is thank you very much, because you have been within the Hub since the start. I remember that we have done together the brainstorming document. And then afterwards, we spoke through the phone when you were still at Strathmore College. And we observe each other. And now you are there as you are, and we are as we are, still growing and developing. And we look forward to have more cooperation with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's continue the conversation.
Thank you, everybody. Lots of you were there, and Dr. Pat was fantastic, as I was actually expecting. I didn't expect anything less from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.